What's up, gamers? It's me, Face, and today I'm here to talk to you about
18 naked cowboys in the showers at Ram Ranch.
So, as some of you may know, I'm a big fan of the cowboy aesthetic. Just something about the hat, the guns, and the imminent lung cancer really resonates with me. And whew, add some horror elements into that, and goddamn, it is one of my favorite combinations. It's like chocolate and peanut butter, but instead lassos and demons. I mean, what's not to love? It's why I love games like Hunt Showdown, and why the game Evil West caught my attention. For those of you that don't know, Evil West is a Devil May Cry-esque hack and slash where you play as a vampire-slaying cowboy with lightning powers. And if that doesn't make you moister than an oyster, I don't know what will. So of course I bought it because how could this not be my favorite game ever? And then I played it and... this just ain't it, Chief. Now, Evil West isn't a bad game, and there are plenty of aspects about it that are good, but when it is good, it's never great. And the game really just doesn't do enough to justify its $50 price tag. So as much as I wish I could just love and recommend this game, I just can't, so let's get into it. Starting with the story of the game, there's not a lot going on, but in all fairness, it doesn't need to have a lot going on. The story mainly acts as a vehicle for gameplay, which, you know, I'm perfectly fine with. In Evil West, you play as Lister Bister the Vampire Fister, aka Jesse Rentier. And yes, it is Rentier, which means your ancestors are French. Oh god, that was real vomit. Oh shit. The French just bring something up in me. I don't know what it is. Now, you work for the Rentier Institute, which was founded by your father to hunt monsters. And your father thinks that you should stop hunting vampires in order to run the business for yourself. Jesse doesn't want to do this because he's more comfortable being wrist deep in a vampire's bunghole, so that causes some friction between the two. The game starts with you infiltrating a vampire's lair, and after a short talk with the man in charge, you head back home with his head in tow, which angers his daughter, Felicity, who is the main antagonist of the game. With Felicity being so upset, she George Bushes an airship into the Rentier Institute, which all things considered is pretty ahead of its time considering this game takes place in the 19th century. But with the Institute destroyed, it's up to you to take out Felicity once and for all. As I said, nothing special, but it gets the job done and helps the gameplay move forward. Moving on, the combat at its core is really good. The punches feel nice and beefy. Your block stun enemies, allowing you to get a rapid hit combo off, which feels nice. You also have some cooler options like the Superman punch, which sends you across the arena to hit an enemy. And you have the Cannonball punch, where you uppercut an enemy to the air and punch them away. And you can use this to send them into stage hazards like dynamite or maybe a spike trap. And there's even an upgrade you can get where it makes the enemy explode on impact, which is so cool. As well, you also have your supercharge mode, which acts as like your super move. You ride the lightning and zip zop around punching enemies left and right. It's really cool. My only big gripe about it is that it doesn't last long enough, so it's kind of like a weak ejaculation. And if those were the only two elements of the game, I'd be pretty happy with it. But unfortunately they're not, and they kind of shit the bed with the rest of the game. So outside of the combat options I mentioned earlier, you also have something called the Zapper, which is what you use to block. But using the Zapper, you can dash to enemies and pull them towards you, which is really cool in my opinion. But it doesn't fucking work. Even though it's so cool, I had to stop using the damn thing because whenever I try to use it, I'll just end up there flailing my arm around like a jackass trying to get it to work. And it works sometimes. When it does, it's nice, but it's so inconsistent that I just stopped using it, which feels bad. And unfortunately, that's the fate of a lot of the tools you get over the course of the game. You have a revolver which you can hip fire and you can even fan the hammer on, but I don't know why you ever use it. It does hit a full damage, and when an enemy's in the air, you can juggle them, but why the hell would you do that? This game doesn't have a combo or a style meter, so when it comes to extending combos, there's no real advantage to my knowledge. And if there is, the game doesn't really make a big deal out of it. Playing on hard mode, most enemies kill you in 2 hits, so clearing out enemies ASAP, it takes priority over big combos. So, again, I stopped using it, which feels bad. There's also the flamethrower and the minigun. The flamethrower, though, is so slow that there's really no point to it, and the minigun takes so long to charge and you get it so late, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've used it. It's cool and does a lot of damage, but it's just not practical most of the time. So, just like the other stuff, I stopped using it. And it just feels so bad to get these cool tools, but for them to feel useless. And all of them you can upgrade, but why would you? If the item feels useless as is, it doesn't make me want to upgrade it further. I'd rather upgrade the stuff I actively use. And I think these items could be cool if they were tweaked a little bit, maybe so that when you equip them, they replace revolver, meaning you have a quick way of changing out your weapon so you can integrate it into combos. That would be cool, but that's just not how this game works. And obviously that's not a catch-all for all the weapons, but it's better than what they got now. And when it comes to enemies, the variety is pretty shabby. You're going to be fighting the same enemies over and over and over again, and by the time you've gotten halfway through, you've more than likely seen everything the game has to offer.
You pretty much just got goon, big goon, and bigger goon.
And none of the enemies really stand out to me all that much. The biggest goons have the most variety amongst them. One of them digs, one shoots webs, and one's a big flying piece of shit. This is a big stupid hive enemy that flies around and shoots flies at you. To knock it out of the sky, you have to shoot the glowing orbs around it. From there, you hit a weak point and then you can beat it up a bit. But by the time it falls on the ground, you only get about maybe 2 or 3 hits in, and then it starts flying again, which is pretty tedious. On top of this, if you have the supreme misfortune of having literally any other enemies in the arena, this son of a bitch makes them invulnerable, which makes the entire process an even bigger pain. Because when playing on hard mode, you already die in 2 hits. So now you have to juggle dealing with invulnerable enemies whilst trying to wrestle with the auto-aim function of your guns, trying to hit the weak point. It is so annoying. So my strategy is using the AoE stun tool to knock it out of the sky, and then hitting it with the supercharge to kill it off in one cycle, which in all honesty feels pretty bad. The enemy isn't all that common, so holding my supercharge for one enemy feels pretty bad. I don't really like doing that, but I also don't like being locked in a fight with this fucker for more than 2 minutes. So outside of that though, enemies, not much variety, pretty lacking. For a lot of people, this gets repetitive. I think the core gameplay was fun enough that it didn't really bother me too much, but by the end of the game, it was definitely pretty stale. Moving on to level design, I think it's pretty Aesthetically, I think they did a great job. A lot of the environments are fun and over the top. For example, there's an oil field level where instead of just being like a couple boring pumps scattered around, it's crowded and chaotic and drowning in oil and pumps, and it's just really cool, and that's kind of stuff I like. In terms of play though, they do leave a bit to be desired. It's pretty standard: walk to an arena, fight some enemies, walk to the next arena, and fight some more enemies with maybe a puzzle or two in between. There are branching pathways which you can explore, which usually have a chest with maybe some money, or if you're lucky, a perk, which I think is a pretty cool idea, having more perks scattered around the world that you can go find. I think that's really neat, because it encourages players to further explore the levels rather than just rushing between point A to point B. If you're unlucky though, the chest will have cosmetics in them, and yeah, there's cosmetics. I think they're pretty stupid. It's just kind of basic recolors. As far as I know, you have the default skin, the ghost set, which you can find in chests around the world, and the set you get if you pay an extra $3.
In general, the game is so dark that whatever skin you're wearing, it's pretty hard to tell that it's even on. So spending $3 for an extra one kinda just seems pointless.
My biggest knock against the levels overall is that they're kinda buggy. Some areas you'll get stuck on nothing and have to exit out your game and reload it back up just to get unstuck, which is pretty frustrating, especially when these areas are on the main path. And you know, it's nothing overly frustrating, it's just a quick exit to menu and hop back in, but you know, still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Following this train of mediocrity is the overall cast. Again, following the trend of they're fine, but could be better. One of the main cast is really that interesting, and the voice acting is pretty...
You're retired. What's he gonna do? Fire you?
meh. A lot of it comes off really awkward and just doesn't land right. And there's characters like Virgil and the researcher, whose name I can't remember but always says splendiferous, who are just flat out annoying and a waste of screen time.
Mr. Jesse!
And the main character, Jesse, has the overall personality of a cardboard box. What's really unfortunate is the best characters in this game are the tertiary characters that maybe get 5 minutes of screen time.
Who do I have to bend over this bar and indiscreetly fuck to get some coffee around here?
Overall, the cast just lacks charm and isn't really endearing in any way. I think a part of this issue comes from the game taking itself too seriously. I mean, you're playing as a lightning cowboy that gets in fistfights with vampires. The concept's pretty far out there, why not just go full balls to the wall and get batshit with your dialogue? but instead we get a bland cast of characters whose names I can hardly remember. Oh yeah, also the cutscenes do this thing where they just kind of interject themselves awkwardly, and it just like yanks you by the collar, pulling you out of any immersion you might have had, and it just feels awkward. For example, when you get introduced to your supercharge ability, you're like surrounded by monsters, and it's like, oh shit, I just got my super, I'ma go nuts. And then it just rips you out. Oh, there's still monsters to kill, there's still enemies, come on, let me fight them. But no, it just yanks you out just like that, and it happens often too, which is so annoying. And before missions, a lot of the dialogue does this, where it just kind of cuts a character off awkwardly with a loading screen and then continues their dialogue. It's just weird. All these aspects of the combat, the enemies, the level design, and the characters, they aren't truly bad, but they're never great. They're never pushed that extra mile that could really make them stand out, and it never justifies the $50 price tag. And really, I think the only reason this game is $50 is because the graphics are pretty good. But a game can't just rely on its graphics, it has to be more than that. And while these aspects are the only aspect that is truly bad about this game, that is truly just horribly done, is the bosses. And so the bosses have the biggest story spoiler, so if you really care about the story, skip to this timestamp here. Otherwise, strap in, we're plowing right through. Evil West has 4 bosses. First one is a giant hentai monster called the Parasiter. It's the good one. It's the one that I actually enjoyed. It's not too tough and offers a decent bit of challenge, and the fight escalates to a point where you always gotta be on your toes, and it's pretty enjoyable. The next 3 fucking suck. The next boss you come across is this weird abomination called the Brunch? The Brunch. It moves really fast and hits really hard, and it seems intimidating, but 95% of the time it just sits there. It just lets you wail on it. And when it's not letting you wail on it, it sits back and charges an attack, which you can stop by shooting it a few times. Hell, the goons it spawns are far more intimidating than this thing ever is. But those have so little health, even your pistol does a lot of damage to them, and that thing is dog shit. And keep in mind, this is on hard difficulty too. I was expecting at least some form of challenge, but it just isn't there. And because you deal so little damage with your punches to it, the fight just drags on way too long. By the time I was done fighting this boss, I was legitimately ready to like just finish the game entirely. I was so bored. I mean, watching paint dry would be more entertaining, because at least then you could at least taste the paint or something to give yourself a little bit of entertainment. This just sucks. Next up, we got Big Daddy. Your daddy. So your dad becomes a vampire and you have to kill him, which is bullshit because multiple times throughout the game I tried putting him down, but it wouldn't let me. So your dad has kind of the same issue as Brunch. His attacks are easy to counter, and he just kind of stands there and takes his beatings. However, once you deal enough damage, you get a phase change, and it seems like you're about to get a cool transformation. No, it just fades to black, and you're suddenly in the next phase, and he has new attacks. And it just feels weird and disjointed. And this acts as a checkpoint, but it just feels so lazy to have just a random fade to black. I mean, they could have put something cool there, maybe like a cool little quick monologue from him, or like maybe he gets up and says, "Subscribe to Faseguy," or something really cool like that. That'd just be awesome. I'd lose my mind if he said that. Otherwise, though, the fight's pretty boring. It's not interesting. For what should be a heavy and emotionally charged fight, it just feels like they threw him a towel and didn't really try at all on it. One upside of this fight, though, is he does have the funniest soundbite in the game. And the final boss is the main villain, Felicity, who transforms into a giant monster. But watching it, I can't help but laugh because it reminds me of Scrappy-Doo from that early 2000s live-action Scooby-Doo movie. I will say, big ups to this fight for actually offering a bit of a challenge. She has some pretty hard to dodge AoEs and a dash that's pretty fast. And if you're not ready for it, you'll get hit and take a lot of damage. Do enough damage though, and she actually has another phase. With a transformation this time. They actually put in the effort. Holy shit! But this phase is actually easier. You can't actually beat her up until she wears herself out. From there you go into like this cutscene combo thing, and you do this a couple times and then she finally dies. If you have your stun tool off cooldown though, you can get some extra beatings in for free. And while this fight was definitely more involved than the other bosses, by this point in the game I was just so burnt on it by then. But once you beat her, that's the end of the game. Overall, the bosses are just the worst part of this game. They are terrible. They feel lazy, they don't feel like they're well thought out, and if they did fix the bosses and made them excellent, I probably would have enjoyed this game so much more, but this just ain't it, Chief. And you know what, surprisingly, amongst all these issues, the biggest problem for Evil West isn't even in the game. The biggest problem for Evil West is that
I am the storm that is approaching.
That's right, Devil May Cry 5. It has the looks, it has the charm, it has the gameplay, it has everything Evil West does, but does it better. And all for just $30. It is legitimately one of my favorite games from 2019 and of all time. It is excellent. You can even get the deluxe edition for $40, and it's still cheaper than Evil West. It usually goes on sale for $10. You'd be insane not to pick this game up. And if you're worried, like, I haven't played the first 4 Devil May Cry games though, don't worry. I haven't either. Man, I love this game. It is everything I was hoping Evil West would be. And I get that the dev team for Evil West is a lot smaller than the one that made DMC, but at $50, I just can't recommend the game. I would highly recommend waiting for a sale. I'd say a decent price for Evil West is probably around the 20 to 25 category. So if you're looking for a game to buy and have $50 in your pocket, pick up Devil May Cry. You'll have 20 bucks left over. You can buy Peglin or something, which is a great time. Or you could buy, I don't know, Cultic twice. Because Cultic's fantastic. You should definitely play that game. But that's Evil Dead. Or 5. That's Evil West. It was released in November 2022 by Flying Wild Hog, and I'm sure I don't need to repeat the price point to you. If you played it, let me know. What's your take on it? I'd love to hear it. Next video, we're going right back to the Soul series with Dark Souls 2. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell to keep up to date, all that good stuff. Follow my socials, Twitter, Discord, all in the description below. And with that, I'll see you fuckers next time. Peace.